Now let's go to the influencing mindset.
Well, I see that on one hand, engineers are not doing so well in this game. And secondly, I see that a lot of engineers are a bit afraid of it. And I think that is not necessary. I think there's a lot of things that you can learn and just with practical things to better succeed in this game. Because it's not a scary big game that we're doing. It's just a thing that you can learn.
It's something you can learn. Okay, but how? How did you learn politics power?
Again, it's by failing a lot, reflecting a lot. I think that's basic for every learning.
Give us an example, please.
Well, going into a meeting and doing a presentation, then you think you have this fantastic idea, and then you notice that you get a lot of resistance, and people think that if you come out of this meeting and people didn't buy into it, either your analysis was wrong, or the people that you met were stupid, or they're not interested. But a lot of these people forget that you went to a process maybe of a month of analysis, and then you're trying to put all this month of work within 10 minutes of the head of people who've never seen this before. So what I always advise people to do is just ask these people before you come to the meeting that is pivotal for the decision. Just talk with these people, and it's that simple as that. Because if you just ask, well, I'm working on this project, their finance director, could you sit with me for 50 minutes to give me advice? Then at the moment you ask that question, they become the co-owner of your problem. They are getting the interest in your problem, and they will give you advice on to how better do. Secondly, these people already saw your analysis. So at the moment you're going to present there, they're already familiar with it. They're not surprised by that, but they already seen it and they have contributed. So they feel as a co-owner of your presentation.
So you use that influencing mindset on a daily basis?
Yeah, so if you think about the influencing mindset in my sort of daily work, then obviously when I work with my clients as well as my colleagues all over the globe, it is important to understand what it is you are trying to achieve with a certain conversation, and trying to understand what it is that they are trying to achieve and what are their incentives. And if you think about influencing on a daily basis, of course, I'm trying to help clients reach a certain decision. Do I make an investment? Yes or no? What is the direction I want to go? And often it is a combination of the, let's say, analytical part, which is sort of what is the right answer based on the calculation. But then there's a whole different kind of spectrum out there, which is much more around what is the decision that is the right thing for that individual or that company in their context. What is the timing of that decision? And how will that affect their relationship with others, for example?
Yes. Well, as said, when you come to a certain point, just being analytical is not nearly enough. And I used to work with Hans Leeflang, also an engineer and quite an influential one if you look at all the VNX locations we have within the Netherlands. And he once told me, it's about influence without power. And actually, that taught me a lot, because I'm not the person to go power playing. I like being analytical. I like thinking about problems in a logical way. I don't like playing games. But you won't make it if you don't understand the game. And that doesn't mean you have to be power playing like some people are, but you have to understand what's going on. And if you do the, Hans was very effective with, influence without power. He used to be a director with I don't know how many 100 people, but in the end he was just a director with a little group. But if you looked at the goals of our ministry, he wrote all of them. So instead of being a director for 200 people, he wrote the goals for the entire ministry without everybody even knowing it, because he was influencing the game. And he was making sure that what he thought were the actual problems for the Netherlands concerning, of course, the job description of the ministry. He was making sure that they were being put on the agenda. And that, for me, was such a mind-shifting moment. Because at first I wanted to be far from knowing the game, influencing. It sounded like manipulating to me, especially when you're logical and you want to think about, okay, but this is the solution, this is technically good. You have to understand that there's more at stake and you can actually influence without trying to be power-driven.
Do you think that engineers are better at influencing or less?
I would say that fundamentally engineers would not be better or worse at influencing, but what I do recognize when I work with engineers and not engineers, I always see because I work in Rotterdam, I always see Delft people versus Rotterdam people, but that can be in any place in the world, of course, where you have economics degrees and engineering degrees. I see that engineers, they want to do things the right way. It has to be correct, and sometimes they have more like an ethical view on things. And sometimes influencing may not be doing the right thing, but may be about getting things the way you want them to be. And it doesn't really matter how the system works as long as you get the things you want.
So they need to be able to use the system in their advantage more.
Yeah, if they feel that things are that they propose are the right things to propose, they're very effective. I would say very effective. But sometimes you don't always want to do the things that are the right thing, but you just want to win a game, you want to come out on top or anything. And what we see is that, what at least I see in my view, is that people who have been studying in economics or business degrees, they have been brought up differently. It's about how do we come out on top. And in engineering degrees, it's more often about how do we create a system that works? How do we make the world better? How do we... And that mindset is less efficient at getting things the way you want them to be.
So are engineers well equipped to influence others? I think there's no reason why they wouldn't be, but there's a risk. I think the risk of trying to solve everything through logic and through facts, that doesn't work with everyone, even if the person on the other side of the table is an engineer. I think in general we're human beings, and I think all engineers are human beings as well. And some people respond very well to logic on a certain, within a certain constraint. But in general we respond to very different things. In the normal world we respond to friendship, relation, to what's in it for me, or what are you going to get out of it, and how are we in the future going to get better out of this. People respond to their own thinking. So rather than you telling the answer, can you help the other person to discover what they think should be the answer? Very much like adult learning, which is you can tell people the answer, but that doesn't always kind of lead to actual movement or decisions.
So you need to be an expert on human nature.
Well, I don't think I'm an expert on human nature, nor I think we in general can claim that, but it is important to understand what is going on and be very good at listening and sort of communicating. But the communication is not a one-way street, right? It's a two-way thing. Yeah. And influencing starts by understanding what's going on the other side, and it's not just one stakeholder. Often it's multiple. So what can you do as an engineer, but maybe you're not used to doing when you're just doing your calculation, is asking questions. What do you think? What are the relevant factors for you to make a decision here? What is important for you next year, etc., etc.